I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Happy to see you. I'd like to do roll call with respect to the advisory board members here. So let me ask for Roberta Hudson, not here yet. Antonio Gracia, Jr.
Here, present.
Thank you. Carol Willis, not present at the moment. Caroline Guerin.
Present.
Karen Vasquez.
Present.
Paul Stone.
Present.
Susan Sparks.
Present.
Raymond Rust.
Present.
And myself, David Lauterstein. Again, welcome everybody. Meeting will come to order. And a quorum, this is enough for a quorum, am I correct? Good. Okay. So, first of all, we'd like to ask the advisory board members if you approve the minutes. Take a look at the minutes. I'll give you a few minutes from our last meeting. And let me know if there are any suggestions. By the way, the date has been since corrected to August 19th. There was a wrong date for the meeting. Otherwise, the minutes stand. And let me know if you have any corrections or additions. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Approved.
I'll second that.
Okay, from Antonio Gracia
Caroline
and from
Guerin.
Caroline Guerin. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Do we need to take a vote? Oh, let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved. The next step in our evolution. Okay. And now, I'd like to have time for public comment. We have just two people, and I want to remind you for public comment that you each have 3 minutes, and that the board members may have a question for you, but it's not context for discussion. Okay, so let me call up Pamela Ellen Ferguson, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and esteemed board members.
If you'll state your
Brian.
name for the record.
I'm so sorry. It's Pamela Ellen Ferguson, and I'm the Texas State Representative of the American Organization for Bodywork Therapies of Asia, known as the AOBTA, and a former national board member. And I'm also an LMT, so I always come with multiple hats when I give comment. First of all, my very good colleagues in the Traeger approach and reflexology were unable to be here today, but we do want to keep emphasizing that we are a resource for all of you when discussions come up about non-massage professions within bodywork and movement therapies. And of course, we are as concerned as all of us are with the misuse of our terms and our professions for human trafficking. And I was just talking to Lorraine, who's going to provide a hotline for anonymous tips, and I would like us to just to update all our members about this if we do observe any illegal activities in our particular neighborhoods. I think it's important to circulate that information. And under my LMT hat, of course, and you've all heard this before, I do have an ongoing support for the MBLEX exam, simply on behalf of a number of my colleagues who both work and teach in different states, Louisiana, California, and Texas as well, and who actually find it very important to tell their graduates about the mobility and of the MBLEX exam and its importance. And at the same time, and I mentioned this before, I have a niece who's married to an Air Force instructor in the United States Air Force. They move from base to base. She's an LMT, and she found the MBLEX absolutely invaluable because she could keep working, which was a very important part of their kind of family dynamic. Anyway, I think that's my 3 minutes, so thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. All right. And I'd like to call up Nicole Kasich.
The timer
Go
starts.
ahead.
Go.
State your name. As you know, the meeting's being recorded, so it helps people to know who's speaking. Thank you.
Okay, I am Nicole Kasich. I'm here to represent myself, and I am in the process of trying to start a school and get a school license. So I'm here for feedback. So far, I paid the fees and whatnot back mid-September, and I still have not had my license issued. I did not receive anything in the mail. When I called, I was told something was sent in the mail. I've not had anyone come out to inspect the location at all yet. That's not been arranged. And I wanted to address one thing so that in the future you can really consider this. Right here, when someone's starting a business, you have section 117.50, massage school license, general requirements and application. When I went through Department of Health, and I had an attorney and a CPA look at that, they said that it was not legal, that you could not form an entity that wasn't licensed and provide financials on something that's zero, and that it would be inappropriate to pay $1,500 to an accounting firm to write up something that's all zero on a non-existing entity. So I waited to apply for licensing until I knew it was going to come here, and there was going to be a lot of work on things. Now, since then, I did turn in financials. I went down to a lawyer that's also a CPA. He wrote up what he could, including a letter, because instead you do it under sole proprietorship instead of a co-op or grow, which hopefully I will do and grow with the community and have something in the community where I live. But he said, as well as I stopped by a tax office that teaches taxes, they said, no, this should be appropriate. When I sent it in, now I'm getting something back saying, no, we need this, we need this, we need this. My personal business plan or financials is usually something you keep secret, not something you share with everyone. It's something you work on. My father's been the president of a Fortune 500 company, and then later traveled the world working with, Bain and Company and Romney from Boston. I have business know-how. I know what I'm doing, and if I don't, I know who to turn to. But they're asking here on Section 3, provide a current financial statement reviewed by a public accountant and finalized no more than 180 days prior to the application date. Why would someone have to have that added expense? If I was still going through a divorce or something like that, everything's on hold. You can't start your life. And I know that's not the intention of the board, is to be stopping stuff like that. As well, I was asked if this did not succeed, or if you didn't have students, how were you planning on surviving? Well, why would I start a business that I don't intend to work at? That doesn't make sense. So these are questions and things that maybe that needs looked at, and a startup section for startups. But you should be able to start a school, start a business. I've been a homeowner over 20 years now. Looking at the location, yes. Looking at, whether or not I have a loan or don't have a loan, no. That really shouldn't be considered.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We don't discuss what's brought
yeah.
up, but are there any questions, just to be sure? Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, those are the two public comments we have. Remember, you're always welcome to sign up to make public comment. The papers are there, and as long as you get here before the meeting starts, you can sign up to comment. We're happy to hear from you. So at this point, let's move on to staff reports. And let's see, in the order, this would be, one moment.
Licensing division.
Oh, yeah, you know the order. Okay.
Good afternoon, Chairman Lottestein and board members. I'm Chloe Whalen, licensing manager for the massage instructors. We have a report in front of you with statistics, so if you have any questions regarding those statistics, I'd be glad to answer those. Just had a reminder that before anyone can renew their massage license, we do need to have them get their fingerprints done, and they can send us an email, and we can send them the fingerprint instructions on how to get their fingerprints done for those who need to renew their license. Anyone that is initial applicant, once we receive their application, then we will send them the instructions on getting their fingerprints done.
That's right. Thank you.
And I'd be glad to
Any
answer any
questions?
questions that you may have.
I had a question, Paul Stone. Have we seen, I guess since TDLR took over, since this is, the primary history you would have, are more massage therapy establishments, massage places that fall under that definition, are we seeing an increase in licenses being issued, or more people complying, I guess would be the question to your knowledge?
For the fingerprint part, or
For just establishment,
Just
the raw number
establishments?
of massage therapy establishments, has it increased any the last 2 or 3 years? I know a lot of people who practice with 2 or more persons under the same roof. In some cases, it's probably they just don't know, they hadn't been educated that they need that license. But I think there's been, some emphasis put on that, and I was just wondering if there's any more massage therapy establishments today compared to 2 or 3 years ago.
sure, what I'll do is go back and look at the numbers and then let you know where we are. Go back 2, 3 years and then see where we are and tell you if it's been low or high.
Russell
Thank you.
Rust, I have one question. On the fingerprinting, I've only noticed one person that has applied for a renewal, and her understanding is that she needed to have her fingerprints in before the next renewal. Is that not accurate, or is that, because I tried to read the paperwork myself, and that's basically what I understood too. So she renewed, and then she must have her fingerprints submitted before the next renewal in 2021. Is
But
something,
she has to have her fingerprints in prior to, or by September 1st of 2021.
okay, that was my question, yes.
Yes, but in the interim, she can go ahead and email us that she's already renewed, and we'll send her the instructions so she can go ahead and go get her fingerprints completed.
Okay, thank you.
I have just a question. So, but then would her renewal be dependent on you all receiving the fingerprints? Or the renewal would go into effect, but the fingerprints nonetheless would need to be received by that date? Is that
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments?
Thank you. Caroline
Okay.
Guerin. New applicants for licensure,
Mm-hmm.
do they get their license and then get fingerprinted, or do they have to be fingerprinted first?
They have to be fingerprinted. Once we receive the application, we will send them the instructions, and then they'll go get fingerprinted. They'll in turn send us a copy of the receipt for that they've completed the fingerprints. Our DPS team will go. They have 72 hours that they can confirm that we have the fingerprints, and then once we receive those fingerprints, then we will continue to process the application or go ahead and issue the license once we have everything.
Okay, is it far behind right now? Because I have a couple students that are still.
For
waiting.
fingerprints?
No, for.
Or for,
Yes.
yes, ma'am, we do have a little backlog,
Okay.
so it is behind a little bit.
Okay, I had a couple of them email.
I think we're about a
today.
week behind.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
That's
Okay,
good.
Russell
Thank you.
Rust, one follow-up question on that, please. If a student that has not quite completed all their education, but we kind of encourage them to go ahead and apply online, waiting for that, will they get the instructions for the fingerprints? So by the
Once we
time they
receive
get the
application,
fingerprint,
yes, sir.
yes, and then once they complete the program, we give them the transcript so that they can mail that
Yes, sir.
information. Okay, so we can be a little more proactive trying to get them the license
Yeah,
as
it's
quick
all
as we
upon
can.
receiving an application for an applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting, thank you.
And I believe Dee Dee wants to add something.
Yes.
It's Brian Francis.
Okay.
I'm Dee Dee McEachern, Director of Licensing. So the FBI will not allow us to give out that number until someone has filed an application with us.
That number being?
That number being the code that directs the fingerprints back to our agency. So logic says someone could go get fingerprinted and then turn in an application once everything is done. FBI won't let that happen. So they have to apply first, and then we can give out the number to go get it done. If someone is already a licensee, they can get the number now and go get fingerprinted. We will not renew licenses anymore until they're fingerprinted. That started this month. November,
We're still November.
yeah. Does that make sense?
Okay, Russell Rush, just to clarify, the initial application, that's what we're trying to get the student, let's just say they're down to 12, 14 hours to do. What we're trying to encourage them to do is go ahead and apply online.
If they've applied
But they
online,
haven't
they can
finished
definitely.
quite all the
They don't
hours
have
yet.
to. As long as
Okay.
we've received the application, the FBI says we have legal authority to have their criminal history.
Okay.
Right. And then just to reiterate what Russell said, and then at the point that the school issues the transcript, then that will be sent.
Then hopefully
you can
everything will
go-
be already be received at
Well,
that
that is a
point.
good idea to streamline it.
Yeah.
Okay. Good? Good, everybody? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Customer Service Division.
Good afternoon, advisory board members. My name is Tuan Nguyen. I'm the customer service manager for this program. As you see in front of you, the customer service stats since the last time we met have relatively been the same, and we're starting to get a little bit increase in September. Customers still calling us about license status, RFI responses, and most of our emails are from school transcripts and, of course, other inquiries that they're just checking on their status on new apps and renewals. Other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all have for me.
Do we have any questions here? I think we're good. Thank you very much. All right. Now, to hear from the Education and Examinations Division.
Good afternoon, Chairman and
Hi.
board members. My name is Lorraine Srofe, and I am with the Education and Examination Division. You should have copies of your report there in front of you. I'm just going to highlight a few items. As you will see, I did attend the Federation of State Massage Therapy Board's annual meeting in the 1st of October. I was the delegate for Texas, and they have voted Charlene Russell to be the new president again. She served last term, and she will serve another term. I provided you with a few statistics that I just thought you might be interested in. The main one I want to highlight on is that they are having a new customer service staff added in their office. They're in the process of finishing up that office and having those available to applicants. You also have the statistics for the continuing education providers, as well as the massage schools, the jurisprudence exam, and the audits of providers as well, and licensees. As you review that, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
I see. Any questions?
Mr.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yes.
Brian Francis, if I could pose one question to Lorraine.
Sure.
So, was yesterday a pretty special day for you?
It was a special day for
Celebrate
me.
anything amazing?
It was amazing. 30 years of being married to my husband.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And my daughter got married Saturday. So it's been a busy weekend.
Any unofficial tips, Lorraine?
I'll talk to you later, David.
I got 31 years. So.
Oh, you got me beat. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. Good. All right. Let's call up the Enforcement Division staff report.
Chairman, advisory board members, my name is Chris Funderburg. I'll present the report to you today. Normally, this would be the part where I faux berate this board for its diligent stewardship of the massage therapy profession. How can we report anything of substance when we just met last Thursday? That kind of thing. But fortunately for all of us, I can dispense with that shtick since there's a fair amount of actual content to report this time. A refreshing change, I'm sure you'll agree. First are some personnel updates, followed by statistics, followed by After that, I'll go over now closed cases, as I believe explaining their path to resolution is best illustrates enforcement's goals in this profession. To start, personnel, Morgan Cumming, a very smart and capable department attorney, received a bit of a twofer last month. She was promoted from an attorney 2 to attorney 3, which is no small feat, but vastly more important than any promotion is the reassignment that went with it. She is now the 4th enforcement attorney assigned to this therapy program. Her ability, diligence, and intellect are a great addition to our team and will prove a great benefit both to the department and to the massage therapy profession. I'd like to now turn to statistics. I think the best way to understand these statistics is to compare fiscal year 2018 to 2019, and you can see the literally exponential increase. For example, the number of cases opened in 2018 was 985. The number opened in 2019 was 1,250. But with an increase of about 30%. And I'll just go through the rest of these categories by comparison. A 70% increase there, a 30% increase in the number of final orders, an 80% increase in the, sorry, I lost my stats. Anyway, there's been big increases all across the board, and I think that reflects the emphasis that enforcement is putting on the massage therapy program, as well as the resources that are being devoted to it. And I think that you're going to only see these trends continue to go up. Now, I hope these stats confirm what I believe, that enforcement is ramping up to the challenge of this profession. The remainder of the report summarizes several cases that have been resolved since our last board meeting. These cases are representative of enforcement's activities in the massage profession. Each is a representative example of the type of enforcement case through its resolution, and I hope they help identify enforcement's regulatory focus and methods. So I'll now turn to the case summaries. The first case, again, I'm not going to read these at you, but I'm just kind of going to go over them generally to kind of illustrate the main point that I hope is evident in these cases. The first one, Fudi Ruti. If the unfortunate name of this enterprise rings a bell, you're right. Different case against a respondent with the same name was presented for your review a few months ago. But although the business name is the same in both cases, the corporate owner of the license in this case is not the same one as the early respondent, and thus for departmental purposes, there's no link between the two. Now, we look at the second case, Lionel Payne. You've seen this set of facts before. An individual is convicted of sexual assault, receives a deferred adjudication, which is not actually required jail time, but nonetheless, for our purposes, functions the same way as a conviction. His license as of that date of the conviction is forfeit, and he can never receive another license again. We sent him a notification to that effect on July 25th, 2019, and that permanent ban will now be in effect. The third case, the main purpose of the third case is, first of all, to show that these are three separate inspections, or investigations performed against three separate businesses owned by the respondent. The common denominator is the owner, the respondent, and so we consolidate them for the purposes of conserving resources. And the other thing is the $7,500 penalty. Not only has it been paid in full, to my knowledge, this is the largest penalty ever paid in massage therapy. And this was one of Morgan's, so I think that bodes well. The final is Stingray Salgado. Yes, that is his name, Stingray. And
Stingray.
Please,
Just want to be clear on that.
yeah.
Thank you.
With the space, I was corrected. So lifetime bans are imposed by one of two ways. They're through statute, as happened with the gentleman in the criminal revocation earlier. And they can also be imposed by agreement between the department and the respondent. These agreements aren't common. Obviously, we would prefer to. They generally happen when the respondent receives a notice where we are seeking $10,000 plus in penalties, and they say, "I don't want to pay that." We then come to an agreement where they pull themselves out of the profession permanently, and we reduce the penalty. Obviously, we would prefer penalties and the sanction imposed, but if we have to choose between one and the other, we'll definitely take the license. The circumstances in this case provide an ideal opportunity for a agreed lifetime ban. He confessed to the respondent confessed to consensual sexual activity during police investigation. Well, the DA dropped it, and probably for good reason. They have a different burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and they actually have to prove that sexual assault occurred. We don't. We only have to prove that sexual contact occurred, which is a pretty expansive definition. And also, we only have to prove it by the civil standard, 51 to 49%. And so success at a hearing was almost guaranteed. He knew this and said, I don't want a revocation, and I don't want to pay the penalty. We substantially reduced the penalty. However, we didn't pursue it at SOA because the revocation, as I'm not, isn't common knowledge, lasts for 1 year. They can come back and get relicensed after that year. So in this instance, this individual is not someone that needs to be practicing massage therapy. And so Rebecca Burkhalter wisely crafted a settlement agreement that makes sure that doesn't happen. The respondent was quick to take it, and we expect this case's resolution will serve as a model for similar cases that I'm sure will come. That's all my report. Do you have any questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
On average, how long does it take from somebody to file a complaint for this guy to be sentenced?
So, I wish I could give you a straight answer, but these cases, so the circumstances you're talking about is where someone has a complaint filed against them alleging sexual assault, and then how long does it take from the moment that the complaint is filed with us for them to be revoked? If we rely on the criminal judicial system to get a conviction, that's a safe lifetime revocation. But we may have to wait and wait and wait because obviously the wheels grind fine. With this agreed order, if they're amenable to it, we can get this knocked out within 60 days. And so I think that time difference is enough for us to want to pursue it on a fairly regular basis. But I again, as far as your initial question, I can't really give a good answer. But but through agreement, quite fast.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much.
I had a question too,
yeah.
Paul Stone. On some of the cases it's noted, but on Mr. Salgado's case, what was the jurisdiction of the county? And then out of curiosity, if you can reveal it since the investigation is concluded.
And I can.
Did
I'm sorry. I just need to get the agreed order.
Can you say how this was? Did the person who was consensual, did they ultimately report this? How did it get reported?
Yeah, so this is, you know what, I think I'm gonna let Rebecca take over this since this is her case. I believe I know that the complainant did not agree with Mr. Saldano's consensual activity, but Rebecca, do you want to?
I'm sorry, what were you asking?
I was just curious as to where this occurred, what county or what municipality, what city, and also, if you can, I'm just curious as to how this was ultimately reported to either law enforcement, if it was consensual, how was it reported to law enforcement, who reported it, or?
So this case actually involved 2 different complainants. She did report it to the Fort Worth Police Department, and she did go through the entire rape kit evaluation. He decided to agree to the revocation of his massage therapist license based on the fact that he had an interviewed tape with the police where he admitted to what he described as consensual sexual activity. And the conversation I had with Mr. Salgado is, and in the interview he said, I know this could affect my license. So when I spoke with him, I said, you knew that when you said this, that you knew you were doing something that was affected by your massage therapist license. And he understood that. So I said, do you want to pay this big fine and get revoked? Or would you like to find another course of employment? And he chose option B.
So in fact, it wasn't consensual at all, according to the investigation.
That was his defense.
Yes.
He was saying it was consensual, but it actually wasn't consensual.
That's right. Well, and what Chris is trying to describe to you is, we often, on cases like this, where there is an alleged sexual assault or an alleged some kind of inappropriate contact, they have a much different burden of proof on the criminal side. And a lot of times, what Chris is trying to explain is that there's usually 2 cases ongoing at the same time.
Because sometimes a complainant will go to the police and make an official police report, and they will turn around and also file a complaint with us as the Department Licensing Authority. So I'm going after them at the same time. And so it's a difficult interplay as to which case goes first. Unfortunately, this criminal case, because he had explained that it was kind of consensual, the DA decided not to pursue the charges. When I spoke to the complainant, that is not at all what she told me. And I don't have the same hurdles on burden of proof. As long as it was during a massage therapy session for compensation at a massage establishment, all of those were met, and he did touch her, and he admitted in the taped police interview that he did. So,
Mr. Stone, Mary Winston, I wanted to add, Rebecca was saying exactly what I was thinking. And we always talk about administrative law versus criminal law versus civil law. So we don't have that burden of beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
So that was his defense, that it was consensual. For our administrative law, our regulatory law, it's not a requirement that it be not consensual, sexual touching. And you all know, this is your law. And he violated those administrative rules, those statutes that are administrative. Criminally, they felt they didn't have enough to move forward. That doesn't affect what we do here if we have enough administratively against that licensee.
Right, and I'm from a family of attorneys, so I understand what he says, 51-49, preponderance of the evidence and those types of things. But yeah, if they had, and this is neither here nor there, but if it sounded like the victim felt like she was violated, it would really add, that sounded like a criminal offense, and I wish they would pursue those things if the complainant and the victim is willing to testify and go forward.
I agree. That's just an unfortunate. Well, and there's, as Mary was describing, let me take the ball and run with it just a little bit, Mary. The offense on the criminal side is a little bit different. So improper, you guys all know this. I'm really talking to these guys listening. But improper sexual contact for a massage therapist could include even touching or a kiss. Help me out, Chris. Massaging while nude. I believe if the client initiates sexual contact with the therapist is supposed to terminate the session immediately. So his confession to police to try to exculpate himself from the criminal issue basically sank his license. So that's kind of what I'm trying to explain.
Yeah. I mean, we would much prefer the conviction, right? Because I mean that's a revocation at law. Like we don't even have to do anything for that to happen. But it's sometimes not worth the wait. Like, and in this case, I think Rebecca found that it wasn't, especially when we have a hot confession like that. Like, can't really pass that up.
Yeah. Well, thank you both very much. Thanks for going after these people who damage our reputation.
I have a question, sir.
Please go ahead.
Russell Russ. Sir. In my other unofficial capacity as a private investigator, I try to play like I'm Magnum PI. But I have seen quite a correlation in businesses that have been closed down for practicing illegally or practicing without a license. And what is happening, they'll shut the shutter for 3-4 months. Then someone else goes in there and leases the exact same place and pick up right with the customers that were getting the services the prior time. Is there any way, maybe not in y'all's privy or however you want to phrase that, for an address to be flagged once that circumstance has been determined? We have one in Dallas, Jade Spa, everybody very well, but we've known of that place for over 10 years. Now, understanding getting a criminal case and following the money is very, but what about if we know that this particular place has been offering those services? What's happening is, and I can give you countless examples of someone going in there and leasing the exact same space because they're picking up on the clientele that have already used the place prior.
You know, the problem that you've described is familiar to us. The problem with our license, I won't say the problem, but our licensing system functions in that if a new individual applies for a license, let's say, for example, an individual, just an individual person runs a business. We pop him, he gets shut down. He comes back as a corporation, he gets a license for that property. That's just how it works. So I think the problem that you've identified, and I think where the solution really starts is with the landlord, and that they're the individuals that are kind of propagating this, and we don't have the authority to pursue them, but we do have DAs in these counties who have access to a nuisance abatement suit through filing property code as well. They through filing of a cease and desist by us, they can use that to basically jumpstart the nuisance abatement project, and the nuisance abatement process allows them to go directly after the landlords. And I think it's not a great solution. I mean, it's not one that gives us much ownership over the process, but we can be a part of it.
Okay, I'm going to follow up with that one thing. When you say go after the landlord,
Yeah.
before I opened my business, the city of Dallas gave me a certificate of occupancy to open. When I first opened my first business in Carrollton, Texas, massage therapy was still considered a sexually oriented business on the record, because not far out in the country were a bunch of trailer houses with tinfoil on the window. So I understand why the little cities protected themselves, but they required me to prove my license. I also had to get some referrals from a few doctors for me to be able to open. Now, of course, we've gotten that language removed from the city, but we're going back to the point, the certificate of occupancies. What business are you opening? A service business. Now, I'm not saying that's the solution, but the cities are giving them the permits to open these businesses.
And
that's not in y'all's.
Oh, no, I
that is
understand.
not in y'all's.
Well, it's
the solution.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right. Like the certificate of occupancy is a kind of resource that we draw upon as best we can, because honestly, the primary issue with a lot of these cases is finding out who owns them. They have shell corporations within shell corporations. They just fly off at night. We don't know who they are, but the city does. And if we, through our contacts that we're developing with the district attorneys who have access to information that we don't, we are better able to track these people down. But I think what you're talking about is using the city's municipal statutes, maybe, or something like that, as a weapon against individual respondents. That might be something we need to look at.
We as the prosecutors for the department have looked at other methods of going after unlicensed massage establishments, and some of the problem, just to share with you guys, is that some of that is not within our jurisdiction. This nuisance abatement that we're talking about, the department, if I remember correctly, cannot file those lawsuits. So that's not something that we have the authority to do. So there are a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and some of it is liaisoning with local law enforcement and local prosecutors who can pursue these types of things in their jurisdictions. So it's a broader piece of the puzzle, but we are just pursuing, our portion.
Tony Grassi, I have a follow-up.
Are you finding that the cities are actually cooperating with you in this?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay.
I think they are.
So some are more proactive, like Harris County. I mean, that's who springs to mind as someone at the forefront of this kind of thing.
Tony Grassi, I just have a follow-up to Russ's question. Yeah, Harris County, we do have a more aggressive Harris County County Attorney's Office, Selena Vincent over in Houston, as well as Nerja Ayers with the City Attorney's Office. And couldn't TDLR kind of team up with them to give them information to where we can sit there and start aggressively going after these people? Because like Russ is part of the state of Texas and Dallas, and us, we're considered hubs. And we need help, more help with enforcement of us teaming up together to address these massage parlors and, illicit massage businesses. But another question I had, is there a way that TDLR can start keeping statistics regarding the people they complaint they got, and actually how many times they investigated, and then also how many days it took to investigate the complaint or turn it over to enforcement?
I think the latter half of what you were talking about is statistics that are probably easily accessible to us, that we could make available to the board, I would assume, once they're gathered up. The first part you were talking about, kind of like a frequent flyers list, people that whose names we keep seeing over and over, we are keeping track of those. Yeah, for what end result, right now may not be clear, but at least we've got a database to draw on.
Well, just more, I know this is positive that y'all are aggressively reaching out to Harris County and
Oh,
City
yeah.
of Houston to try to address the problem.
Oh, and
We need it.
they reach out to us too, and they,
Right.
they ask for, what is it, agreed orders?
Right.
Or or cease and desists. They use that as grist for their nuisance abatement actions, which I think ultimately are the way that these problems get solved.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
We're trying to do our best to make sure that their phone numbers are in our Rolodex and our phone numbers are in their Rolodex, so that if they run into a sticky case where they can't find the owner, they can call us and we can call them. So we're doing our best.
Well, because I'm the new sergeant over the human trafficking, organized crime, nuisance abatement squad, and Officer Gonzalez back there is part of my team. So we partner up with City Legal, County Attorney's Office, as well as Brian Litton on your group. So
Yep.
did a pretty good job.
The AG's human trafficking. Is that the
Yeah,
AG?
and them too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They just recently started sending me emails, asking for assistance.
That's good.
Right.
I mean, it has to be a coordinated effort across agencies. Like, one agency alone can't do it.
Oh,
But
too many.
Okay. One more follow-up of that.
Yeah.
Since Dallas had disassembled, or whatever you want to call it, their Vice Squad, they've just now put it right back in. And this is how Jade Spa and those places, because they did eliminate the Vice Squad completely. Are y'all finding the cooperation with Dallas being the same as Houston?
We're going to. This is Brian Francis. So one of the things that you're made aware of is out of this session, we received funding to put together an anti-trafficking unit. And that's one of the groups that's going to be grabbing the great information that comes from our enforcement group and field inspections, our general counsel office, and having that liaison, that coordination with the different law enforcement groups to give them the data they need, but also to get them the information that's actionable. You may have one county attorney that says, I want your cease and desist order with the cover page that says who all the players are. And another county may want just simply the list of the players, the address, and a finding. And we're going to figure out what is easiest for each group to get so that they can move on it. And we're building those contacts and building that relationship over the days. But it's exciting. I was going to take this moment, Mr. Chairman, if I could, to slowly go through just a little bit of it. I want to reemphasize something that Chris said. When you look at 2019, those 218 final orders, to put that into context, when the Sunset Commission first approached TDLR about maybe taking on 13 programs from the Department of State Health Services, for the whole year, for all 13 programs, there were 61 disciplinary actions. For all 13 programs across the board, 61 disciplinary actions. The enforcement division, kind of going on to what Ms. Ferguson was saying, is that we're getting into the roots of it, and we're helping to pull out those actors that are bringing down the reputation of this industry. And when you get a lifetime ban like Rebecca did, and I just thanked her in the hallway because I signed a second lifetime ban last week that she was able to get as well, the enforcement division's efforts have been phenomenal. They are attacking the folks that are sexual predators. They're attacking the folks that have those human trafficking tendencies. They're attacking the unlicensed activity individuals, the folks that bring the harm to the reputation of this industry. The enforcement division, those 218 complaints are pulling at the root, and each one is setting the foundation for the next action that we can elevate to the next level. So even if it's a foundational step that we're taking, it really is something we build upon for that next violation. But the examples in here are phenomenal. But Rebecca and Chris and the team have done significantly more. I've apologized in the last couple of months because I looked at the 61 and I thought that's the world we were inheriting. We're going to inherit a world of about 300, 500 disciplinary actions a year. That's what we're going to have. But that effort is going to clean up the industry of those bad actors that really harm the reputation. The team's just done a phenomenal job in really being consistent. I think the credibility that they have built up with law enforcement in the different jurisdictions, that now there's an agency that's taking the action on the administrative side of it, is really making a difference.
Cool.
I'm very proud of them.
One follow-up to that, Brian. Y'all did a lot of outreach programs before TDLR took us over. Is there a possibility for y'all to schedule some of those now that you have taken
It's
us
coming back
over,
around.
had us for a couple of years?
It's coming back around, my friend. We
Okay.
call strategic planning, and so we're getting ready to go through that next cycle somewhere in March and April.
Thank you,
It's about
sir.
to happen. Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask, were you going to say something?
Just let's say our names again when we ask questions or make comments. Thank you.
Paul Stone, and this is my last question for a while. Is it just two, sexual predators and human traffickers not only need to be sanctioned as far as loss of license, I think they need to be criminally punished to the fullest extent of the law as well. Is it too mammoth, is it too colossal of a problem to tackle one of our biggest problems, if not our biggest problem in that industry as far as unlicensed activity? It's the unlicensed person who's not a sexual predator, who is simply not going through the process of gaining their license and practicing massage therapy for pay. Is it too colossal to tackle that?
I apologize. Partially, that's due to the focus of the case summaries that I present to you. I mean, yes, and licensed activity is actually probably our number one, because it's the number one in numbers, and because it's of such concern to this industry. These case summaries aren't representative of really what our overall efforts are, which I would say primarily are against unlicensed individuals and establishments.
And exactly how do you do that?
We fine them. We fine them.
But since they're not under your jurisdiction, since they're not licensed, I'm just want to remind myself how you can go after.
So Brian Francis, and I'll start, and Rebecca and I will ping pong off each other.
Yeah.
So part of it is that a good number of these folks are working in licensed facilities.
Yes.
And so the big leverage point is going after the owner
That's
and
right.
hitting them hard and making them suffer some financial consequences for employing and having those unlicensed individuals on there. But the cases that Rebecca and the team send to me, it's the inspector goes on site, immediately arriving on the location, identified two customers, approached not approached the customers when they're in the room, approached, identified that the two individuals performing the services were not licensed, immediately spoke and contacted the owner, and the steps start going through. But we have, and you've helped us work on this too, the unlicensed penalties that we have in our matrix allows us to swing a heavier hand on those owners and the individuals, and we make decisions on, okay, what's the right hand to go after in this moment.
Good. Well, thank you.
And if they advertise that they offer massage, that's protected
yeah.
under the Act and under the rules
Got
that
it.
are adopted under the Act. So we fine them, even if they're not one of our licensees.
Got it. Well, thank you. Thank you for letting everybody know more about that.
And just as a quick follow-up, the way a massage establishment is defined in the statute, you don't need to be you don't need to be a licensee to bring it under our jurisdiction. So if it's as long as your as massage therapy is being offered out of that establishment, we've got you.
Got it.
Caroline Guerin, I have a question. Is that a matter of public record? The ones that you go out that do not have establishment license? If they don't have an establishment license and they get fined, is that a matter of public
Yes.
record?
Absolutely.
Oh, it is?
You can search it on our
On TDLR?
disciplinary database.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you like that for next session, or for the next meeting that we have? Okay.
I would.
Okay, great.
I know it's on our website. There's an administrative orders search page. You can actually go into TDLR's website, go look at the administrative orders search page. You can select massage therapy and say, I want to see all of the orders for the past 2 years. It'll show you which orders came up.
Thank you.
So, and I'm sure we can probably get on it to send you guys a link if you guys would like one.
Sure. Thank you so much.
I would, thank you.
Oh, no, I don't.
The other piece that I want to point out along those lines, if you go to our webpage, on the far right column, there's a category called Safeguarding Consumers and Protecting Public Health and Safety. That one allows you to go directly to a list of licenses that have been revoked, suspended, injunctions. So not even going through the disciplinary database, you now have a quicker run to what's been revoked, what's been suspended, what we have injunctions on. So that's on the far right, and it has the category again of safeguarding consumers and protecting public health and safety.
And I'm remiss. Our able statistics, Griselda Perez was actually provided to me that information, and I can let you know of it now if you'd like. that is how many cases that we had that were related to unlicensed. Unlicensed establishment in 2018 was 343. Unlicensed establishment in 2019 was 348. I guess it would probably be more useful to know how many cases exactly were open at that time, but yeah, so those are by far the most common of violations alleged at opening. The second is sexual misconduct in 2018 and unlicensed therapist in 2019, and both of those are like 50 cases below.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your patience in answering our questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Field Inspections Division. Hello.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Board. I'm happy to be here. My name is Julianne Crocker. I'm representing the Field Inspections Division today. So what we've provided for you are the top violations that we see during inspections. So these are separate from the enforcement cases. This is what we find doing our periodic inspections. Something of note, we've had some statute changes that have extended some of our inspection time. So I know with massage and cosmetology, sometimes they go hand in hand. Some of our cosmetology inspections are now on a 4-year cycle. So if you have both licenses, you may not see us quite as often. So let people know that. And our division is growing and changing. We have quite a few personnel updates. I'd like to congratulate Juan Munoz, who was designated as our Central Region Manager for our newest region, and Angela Sanders, who will be the liaison for that area. We've also promoted several of our inspectors to 5, so they're going to be the ones that are kind of lead and helping to train our division. And those are Heather Allen, Tisha Cantu, Lance Caroland, Abraham Delgado, Michael Hanna, George Vega, and Patrick Kane. We'd also like to extend our congratulations to Suzanne Creed, who was promoted to an investigator in our enforcement division recently. And James Turner was promoted to liaison for our North region. And then finally, on the back, you'll find our statistics for how many inspections we completed. Any questions?
Russell Rust, you had came up with an establishment inspection checklist. I still haven't seen anything for the education or the schools. Is that separate from what the inspections you're doing?
No, the education, our team does do the schools as well as the establishments, and so I'll check with our team to see if that can be posted as well. But we do have a checklist that is used for both initial and periodic inspections.
Thank you.
Paul Stone, just to point out, as a former newspaper editor, it kind of jumped out at me, and I don't know if this was picked up or not. Well, I'm sorry?
You've done everything.
I've done a lot of things, none of them, I'm jack of all trades, a master of nothing. 117.90, number 2, it says consumer compliant instead of consumer complaint. I just want to be sure that needed to be corrected on a website or something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take a look at that.
Mr. Stone, Mary Winston, Mr. Stone, our executive director was over here tapping me and pointing it out to me. Duly noted, I have asterisks. Y'all got, thank you.
The vowels just got flip-flopped.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay,
Thank
thank
you
you
very
very
much.
much. And congratulations to those people moving up. Okay. Now, the Regulatory Program Management Division.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Jerry Gonzalez, and I'm with the Regulatory Program Management, RPM Division, and I'm here to provide a report for you today. As we noted in your packet, effective September 1st, the massage program moved over to the medical and health profession section of RPM, and so now we're under Ms. Heather Muir. Some of you may remember Ms. Muir is the director of the massage program when it was over at the Department of State Health Services. We've also recently, that's not in your packet, added a new member to our team, Ms. Amanda Smith. Amanda is now was hired as the executive assistant to our section, so we welcome Amanda to our team as well. Marinella and I have continued to work with the massage therapy bill implementation team regarding the changes and implement the changes that were effective this last legislative session. We've developed some questions, FAQs, excuse me, and also worked on the proposed rules that are before you today. We continue to assist the enforcement, field inspections, licensing, and customer service groups, division, excuse me, with questions that arise during their investigations, inspections, as well as addressing the daily questions the industry has and emails that they have for us. Something that, Russ, that you mentioned earlier, part of what RPM does is we try to go out and do community outreach. So if you all have an event, a function, or something that you would like for us to attend or show up, please let us know, and we'll make every effort to be there and help answer any questions that you may have for the massage industry or program. Finally, the medical and health professions section has a newsletter, the Health Monitor, that provides information on the health professions groups that are under our new section. If you look at our the June 19th edition, it has an overview of the statutory revisions from the last session, along with timelines on there. You can get to the newsletter from the massage homepage as well. And we're also drafting currently our December edition, so if you have any ideas or any articles that you'd like for us to address, please let me know, and we'll try to work them into this next edition or the following edition. This concludes my report, unless you have some questions or something I can answer for you.
Russ, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
In the scenario of you coming to a convention or to an outreach program, how do we protect you? Because I have been where I've invited particular TDLR, and I know y'all have things set up, but it kind of, because it gets so far off what you're there. Do you understand where I'm going with this? And I would love to invite you, and I have no problem with that, but it's about your protection.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Well, as you know, wish this question would have come up when I was conducting inspections at the health department. A lot of things too is, first of all, we need to stick to an agenda and stick to what statute allows us to do or not do. And so, as much as we all have different ideas of what we can or would like to do, there's only certain things that we can do or have authority to do. So part of that is being able to discuss, as an example, the changes that have come up with this last legislative session. We can address some of those new changes coming up, some of the areas that we may be looking towards in the future to change. We have the strategic planning coming up, and we can address that issue, that concerns can be brought up at that point. And again, to better the profession and try to get everybody on the same page. Again, there's, it's going to happen. People are going to have their, I guess, opinion or version of what they would like to happen, but sometimes they don't understand the full picture or totality of the picture of what we can or can't do.
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, that allows us to be able to address some of the concerns. But nonetheless, we'd like to hear those concerns because we may be able to address them. But again, until we know them and be able to discuss and see what those concerns may be and address them at that point.
Okay, again, I'm for your safety and protection.
Yes, thank you, and I appreciate that. Like I said, where were you 28 years ago?
I was there.
Where was that protection?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, thank you.
All right. I just am curious, in terms of article ideas, what are the range of topics, as an example, that might be covered in that health monitor?
Anything that would affect the profession. Currently, as I mentioned, we mentioned the legislative changes. This next edition that we have, I want to have a little article about the fingerprinting and just give a brief overview of what the processes are, timelines on that. Want to give a little feedback, too, of these proposed rules, status of what's going on with that. So there is really not a limit, per se, or there's boundaries in as much as it affects the profession itself. But other than that, something, that the profession would need to know or you feel needs to be aware of, definitely we can put it on there.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
All right, any further questions or comments? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
I'd like to call on the Executive Office.
Mr. Chairman, board members, as always, thank you for your service. We appreciate it. I wanted to wish you happy 2-year and 18-month anniversary. I know for some folks it feels like you've been here forever.
Yes.
But it's exciting and to think about it. It's only been 2 years. And I think we've covered a lot of ground together. We've made a lot of positive changes. There's still more to happen. But 2-year time to think that we'd be at this point with the rules and the penalty matrices and even the report that the Enforcement Division did and moving forward with the process and the projects, it's really phenomenal. I'm going to provide an update on personnel. I'm going to provide community outreach, kind of touch on what Mr. Russ was talking about a little bit more, and then the sunset review process. So in regard to personnel updates, Carla James, our Deputy Executive Director, retired. So it'll be effective December, but she's already hanging out and figuring out what life looks like, not coming to the office every day. We were able to move very quickly and identify some very talented replacements. Our agency now will have 3 Deputy Executive Directors instead of 2. One will be Mike Ares-Mendez, who will be over the indirect administration activities, whether it's financial services, IT, and those groups. The other is Christina Kaiser, who was the Director of Enforcement. She's been elevated up. She will now be the Deputy Executive Director over Regulatory Affairs, which will have RPM, the group you just heard from. It'll have enforcement and field inspections. So those 3 activities will fall into Christina's watch. And then the third Deputy Executive Director is Mr. David Gonzalez down here at the end. David was the Director over RPM. He's jumped ship. I like to do this just to make him feel uncomfortable. He said he didn't want to work with his people anymore. He just left them. And look, he's just like turning red, you know. It's like, what? And a couple of them are going to walk out. Did he really say that? I don't know. He did not say that. He wrote it. No, he didn't. But David's now going to be over licensing, education examination, and customer service. So we have the licensing service activities clustered together, the regulatory services clustered together, and the indirect administration pieces. I feel extremely grateful to have such talented support to help me lead the agency as we continue to move forward with all the changes and all the improvements and just trying to make the programs, operate as best as they can. With those moves, David's position was filled by Charlotte Melder, so she's now going to be the Director of RPM. I don't expect you to remember all the names. And then Ron Foster was elevated to the Director of Enforcement. So there's a lot of new faces and new chairs, but there's a lot of old heart and core values of who TDLR is sitting in those roles. So it's going to be a phenomenal opportunity for our agency as we move forward.
Brian,
Yes,
can
sir.
I ask you a question?
Please.
Since there are new people in various positions, and often we as advisory board members may get approached by somebody saying, I'm trying to get such a question answered, it would be great if all the board members could receive the names of kind of the key people, so if somebody contacts us, we know where to refer them, rather than just saying, call customer service. Could we have an up-to-date list
Yeah, I
along
think
those lines?
what we may do to increase our subscribership, we may just have those placed in the next health monitor.
Sure.
So that it'll go out to everybody and everyone will have it. So that way we know I have at least 7 reads on it. And my team will be she's so excited, like 7 people are going to read it.
Oh, boy. Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Mr. Francis, Russell.
We want to
Ross,
include
I
their
have a
phone
question.
numbers. Everybody started freaking out. Don't put their phone numbers in there.
On the health monitor, I know that I look at it, but do
Thank
you
you.
know how many people are actually?
I can provide statistics. I think we have a 27% click rate in opening it.
Okay.
But that's not bad. Now it's kind of, that can be a misleading statistic, since some individuals can have their their email browser set up to where it's open already. But before, you had to click on it, and we could see how many people opened it. But we can provide that data on that. But we do look at that.
Sorry, Mary Winston, I have it from the audience.
Oh, there it is.
Heather Muir.
I love my team. They're so responsive and so good. I don't know if you noticed, Mr. Chairman, but during the presentation, Chris received data from our enforcement division that was just fresh out the box. That makes me proud to see that.
Sorry.
All right.
Because I'm Heather Muir, Regulatory Program Manager. Because I'm under the weather, I don't want to cough up a lung up here, so I'm going to let Mary Hoffman give you all some of these statistics, because if I talk too long, I will start choking.
Hello.
Hope you feel
Mary
better.
Hoffman, RPM. And let me look at this. So it looks like we have about a open rate. And so this number is from our June edition that went out. We have an open rate of 32%. And with that, we have delivered our June edition to over 29,000 recipients.
Great. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Russell Rust, how could y'all get that to a higher number? Do you have any solutions for that? I also deal in marketing such as that, and if I get a 5% click, I'm happy. But I understand this is very important stuff that, to inform the massage therapy profession. I mean, this is just vital information that they must be up to date on.
Right.
I think it's the profession. I'm sorry, Mary, you go first.
Well, I was just going to say we can encourage associations and other people in the profession to let people know that they can sign up for the updates. So anyone who has signed up to receive updates for any of the health professions will receive this.
Would it be appropriate for me to forward that to my membership?
Of course.
Maybe
Absolutely.
Yes.
Would that be okay?
Of course.
So,
All right, I'll get
Mary
into that.
Winston, because I'm being pinged, which is a good thing. Tila Monge from our Public Information Officer, as it was coming out of your mouth, she was saying, it would be so great if you guys would encourage the readership. And so y'all were like having a mind meld. So definitely, that would be fantastic.
And we do share this information at our conferences as well, so we can try to get the information out.
She also had one more thing, follow us on social media. So, yeah, we do try to leave a footprint for those updates on different types of Twitter, Facebook. I don't think we're on Snapchat. I'm really just kidding. I'm kidding. But so Tila is pinging me and just trying to make us all aware of what we do have out there.
But are y'all as provocative as the Kardashians are?
Sorry.
Okay.
This is massage, so I think we can compete.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just segueing from the conversation about the health monitor, this industry, for whatever reason, I think it may be my fault, because I spoke early on in Ms. Guerin's at one of the meetings for the associations, and we haven't been invited back. And so I must have flopped or something.
I'm ready.
But we have seen a lot of the other industries really call on our agency to get out there, and whether it's in our electrician program, our air conditioning contracting program, cosmetology, those groups say, TDLR, come out. We have an annual conference. We have a quarterly meeting. Can you come and send somebody? Mr. Russ, you asked about what can you do to protect us. My team is skilled in verbal judo. They can take those comments and move them back because we have something of value to offer, and we also know that there's an opportunity for us to improve by just listening. And so being in the room when there are folks that are upset and they're just mad, we find it to be an educational opportunity. We typically have the answer to say, I understand how you feel. Actually, the statute reads this way. Oh, my gosh, I didn't know that. So we want to come out, and we want you to invite us out to come talk to you.
Okay, and one follow-up on that, Russell Rust. Would you prefer it as a set time, or would it be for y'all to maybe have a booth? Would that be a better setting? I'm trying to figure out what would work best for you guys.
They all work. Just recently did a conference for the audiologist. And so I was their speaker right before lunch, which is always an interesting spot to be in. But we also had a booth that was, operated with our folks all day long. And so those combinations work. If it's just a booth, those are great places, just have the foot traffic. Sometimes folks don't want to ask the question in front of a big room, and just having those one-on-ones builds a lot of contact and a lot of credibility with our team. So however you are doing your meeting, we can plug into that. We can plug in, and we'd love to. We did 811 presentations in 18 months to different groups. We want to get out. We want to have the contact. It helps lower the phone calls that go to our customer service division, because people ask the question about the renewals. They're going to ask the questions regarding fingerprints. How's it work? Well, my friend got it, and it's always their friend who has my friend, and he couldn't read it. Okay, well, tell your friend that this is how it works, and we can get you through the process. So we really revel in those opportunities.
I have a question, Caroline Guerin. Who do we call to get this lined up?
Well, you can have Jerry. RPM
okay.
is usually the point on those type of
All right,
meetings.
thank you.
But you'll have meetings to where you may want enforcement to get out, and RPM will coordinate and say, hey, they really want to understand the complaint process. You may want to have somebody from our field inspections group come out, talk to RPM, and they'll make sure that we get the right bodies there. Some of the conferences will have RPM, licensing, enforcement, and general counsel there at the conference, so that we have the full range of resources available to answer the questions.
Great.
you.
Okay.
Mr. Stone, you had asked earlier, y'all can grab a seat, thank you so much. And Heather, thank you for keeping your lungs inside. It's important. You had asked about the number of massage establishments. In 2017, the data that we had coming over from Department of State Health Services was 1,600. For fiscal year 2018, it rose to 2,100. And now in fiscal year 2019, it's at 2,499.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Gracia, I got a question to that, Mr. Francis.
Yes.
Are those for the state or by city?
That's state.
The state.
Those
Do
are
you have
state.
it? Do you have it broken down in the city too as well?
We can run that.
For Houston and Dallas,
Yeah, we can run that analysis.
the major cities, because that'd be nice to have something like that.
Sure. We'll get that for you.
For the rules.
Mr. Chairman, as you are aware, TDLR is currently under the sunset review process, and we are going to be lucky enough to go through sunset 2 consecutive sessions in a row, which means over about a 4-year period. We'll go through it. The first phase of sunset is going to focus on what we call our legacy programs: air conditioning, electrician, architectural barriers, and those programs. The second phase is going to include those that were transferred since September 1 of 2016, I believe. And that's going to include massage and dietitian, dyslexia therapists. But you can still participate in this first phase, because they're looking at the overall operation of the department and the operation of the commission, and even how we do advisory boards. So there's a lot of information that you can provide to them and say, we love this, we don't love this. The statute should include this, the statute should include that. And you can also provide information about statutory changes that you think are appropriate for your industry, even if that's in phase 2. There may be some ability to look at that. But 2 big buckets of information. We, in the month of October, we had 14 2-hour meetings with the Sunset Commission staff to go over who we are as an agency, how we operate. We've been having separate discussions, and we're providing some statistics and information for them. We anticipate that sunset review process is going to run all the way through May. And then they'll come out with their report, and we'll see what they have to say about that. There's information on our main webpage. If you look at the very top of the banner, it says Sunset Review. Do you want to participate? You click on that link. It goes right to their page, gives you an email, information that you can provide to them directly. So I'd encourage you to participate in the process. It's very worthwhile, and at TDLR, we know that's only going to make us smarter and a better agency at the end of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very, very much.
Mary, do you have
I
anything to
think
add?
it's appropriate at this time, if it is okay for us to take a break. Let's take a little break, and then we're going to have some discussion about rules and so on. So let's take, 10 minutes? Will that be enough? Okay, till 2:20.
we'll do more.
Hello. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Thank you very much, and thanks for your staying beyond the break. And let's see here.
There's Colleen right there in front of you.
Yes. Hello. Thank you.
Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel. Good afternoon, board members. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody for being here.
Welcome.
So we're going to discuss agenda item F. The proposed rules have been out for public comment for 30 days. That public comment period closed on November 11th. I didn't count the number of comments. I have them summarized, but I don't. Oh, sorry. But we've got a fair number of comments to go through today. So the plan is that we'll go through, I'll walk us through comment summary and responses to the comments if there are any changes. Yes, I've given everybody a document and I've left them on their devices. The hope is that at the end of the comment discussion, we take a vote to propose that these rules go before the commission for final adoption at their next meeting. Okay. So we're going to start with the comments I've summarized for you, but you also have the chart that I provided. One commenter agrees with the cap on hours being removed for internships and would like to have a state exam. The response to that is that the proposed rules remove the cap on the number of internship hours a student can obtain to align requirements with the current statute. Texas Occupation Code, Chapter 455, specifically Sections 455.053 and 455.055 state that department must set the maximum number of hours a student may accumulate before the student is required to be licensed. The maximum number of hours a student may accumulate in an internship before a student is required to be they're required to be licensed is 50 hours as set out by statute in Section 455.156. The comment on a state exam does not address any of the current proposed rules, and therefore it's been referred to the appropriate division for further review. So no changes have been made in response to this comment. We have two commenters that are concerned with the implementation process of the student permit, and they feel that more clarification is needed. The proposed rules are implement the student permit requirements as required by House Bill 1865, 86th Legislature, regular session, this past session. House Bill 1865 will apply to students who enroll in massage schools on or after June 1, 2020. The comments are more concerned with the actual administration and procedures and not necessarily the rules that we have for student permits. So they've been referred to the appropriate division, Ray, for for review.
Oh, boy.
And those comments about the concerns are real, and Ray's group has them, and they will help us shape how we get the information out there and how we let the industry know how we're going to work the process, because it's not required until June 1, so we have time. We're going to do the rules first and then do the implementation process. So no change has been made in response to the proposed rules in response to these comments. One commenter disagrees with the removal of the requirement that justifications be submitted to the department on admission requirements. The proposed rules require that a school develop and maintain admission requirements without the added burden of justifying those business decisions to the department. Therefore, no changes have been made to the rules in response to that comment. Mr. Stern, do you have a question?
No, I'm just trying to kind of find, I'm trying to go along with you, and I'm having difficulty.
Second page.
Oh, well.
The second page of the chart.
Well, that's probably a good reason. Maybe I should look at the appropriate material. Okay,
That's
thank you.
all right.
So I'm on page 2 in the second box. One commenter is concerned with the current rules regarding massage school license renewals at section 117.57E specifically, and the impact on students and student permits. The proposed rules make a clarifying change to the term massage school by removing the phrase a massage therapy education program. The proposed rules don't change the purpose or impact of section 117.57E, and so therefore, and beyond removing the extra language, the commenter is concerned about the impact on the current rules on the new student permits process. And these are procedural and administrative concerns that are beyond the scope of the rulemaking, so therefore no changes have been made in response to this comment. Although Ray does have those comments too. One commenter would like to see the student permit expire upon successful completion of the number of internship hours required for licensure. The proposed rules for the new student permit provide for a department procedural and administrative implementation of the new permit. The requirements allow for the department to properly track the student throughout the course of their career, provides administrative safeguards, and does not require students to pay multiple fees or renewals. That's why they don't expire. So no change has been made to the proposed rules in response to this comment. One commenter believes that the definition for student permit is unclear. The proposed rules for student permits and the definition of student permits does not limit the number of internship hours that a student may accumulate. The proposed rules address only the requirement the department is required to track a student as they complete the minimum 500 500-hour education required by law. So therefore, no changes have been made as a result to this comment. One commenter does not agree with removing section 117.58B regarding the designation of an individual by the director of a massage school when the director is unavailable or absent. The proposed rules add that requirement into the section above, 117.58A, and that also outlines the responsibilities of the designated contact person. So no change has been made to the proposed rules in response to that comment. One commenter is concerned with the removal of the hour cap on maximum number of hours a student may accumulate in a massage school internship and how this change aligns with statute. You will also notice in your packet that commenter submitted the same comment twice. That's why it's only one comment. The proposed rules remove the cap on the number, and this is the same explanation as above. It's by statute that's laid out, and we're matching statute. One commenter believes that section 117.66B 2 and 1 pertaining to massage schools refund policies say opposite things and is concerned with how a student is protected in the event a massage school does not teach the total scheduled hours in any required program. The proposed rules do not make substantive changes to that particular section pertaining to massage school refunds. The only changes in that section are terminology changes from the use of unused instead of unearned for clarity purposes only. So section, and I lay it out further, but the number 1 speaks to all tuition, while the number 2 that the commenter is speaking to speaks to the unused portion of the tuition that can be refunded. The commenter raises an issue-specific question about the application of the current rules. This comment has been referred to the appropriate division for review and reach out, and that will go through Ray as well. So no change has been made to the proposed rules in response to this comment. Ray's so lucky. One commenter would like to know the purpose of section 117.64E3 and feels like it is already covered in another section. The proposed rules do not make any substantive change to current rules. The proposed rules remove the redundant use of the phrase therapy education program and merely renumber the section. The requirement of section 117.64E3 is current rule and outlines what records must be retained by a school and for the period of 3 years. So no change has been made to the proposed rules in response to this comment. The career colleges and schools of Texas submitted a comment. They are also concerned with section 117.59 and how it could be interpreted to prohibit a program that exceeds 500. Again, this is a comment that we've received in a few different forms. We're matching the regulatory requirements to what is in statute. There is no prohibition on a program exceeding 500, but as far as TDLR is concerned, we are only concerned with the regulatory aspect of what is in statute, which is the 500-hour minimum. One commenter disagrees with the new draping rules and believes it should be their right to choose whether or not to be draped or undraped. The commenter would like the department to change the current refund policy as well and allow schools discretion of what the refund policy should look like. The proposed rules on draping were developed by the Massage Therapy Advisory Board Standard of Care Work Group. The requirement for draping of certain areas at all times is intended to protect not only the client but the therapist. The proposed rules provide updated terminology for school refunds to provide clarity and don't address the substantive refund process, so that's outside of the current review. We are not suggesting any changes be made as a result of this comment. And I just want to point out that that is an advisory board work group and a proposal about draping. And if we're all okay, I will keep going if we're not going to change.
Good.
One commenter states that the MBLIX is not a good test for Texas and would like to see it discontinued as soon as possible. The comment on the MBLIX does not address any of the current proposed rules. It has been referred to the appropriate division for review, and no changes have been made as a result of this comment. The next comment is very, very long. The commenter made several comments on rules that are not currently under review, have not been proposed for substantive changes, or on issues that are beyond the scope of the rulemaking. So those portions of the comments have been referred to the appropriate division for review. So we will only address the comments that are actually opened or proposed for change. The commenter does comment on the same section 117.59 about the cap, so you will see the same language in response about the 50-hour cap and the statutory requirement of the 500-hour minimum, and that no changes will be made as a result of that. The commenter is concerned about what records are required to be retained by a massage school. The proposed rules retain some of the current requirements for records retention to ensure that the most pertinent information of a student record is retained for a minimum of 3 years to comply with audit or inspection requirements and for verification of potential transfer students. So no changes were made to those requirements there. The commenter does not believe that the department has the authority or control to make a student eligible to take the appropriate examination. The law provides that the department has the authority to prepare, recognize, administer, or arrange for the administration of the examination under Chapter 455. The proposed rules implement the student permit process by 1865. House Bill 1865 applies to students who enroll on or after June 1, 2020. And the law also requires in new section 455.2035, on a student's completion of a prescribed course of instruction, the school shall notify the department that the student has completed the required numbers of hours and is eligible to take the appropriate examination. That's verbatim from statute, so therefore no change has been made in response to that comment. However, this commenter does raise an issue, and he does not agree with the requirement that a financial record must be retained as required by federal retention requirements if they are applicable. So that is proposed rule section 117.64F, and that is a requirement for retention for financial records must be retained as required by federal retention requirements if applicable. The department does not find any issue with removing that requirement. It is already a federal requirement. If it applies, then you must meet that federal requirement. There shouldn't be any, there's no state regulation of that. So if the advisory board is okay, we will strike that requirement.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Colleen's still staring at you to see if you want
yeah.
to take a vote
Yes
on
or
that
no?
particular item.
I'm sorry.
Or,
I wasn't really.
or,
Well,
if you want to wait to the end and take a vote and just made that suggestion. You have options on how you may want to proceed.
Let's take
Does
a
this
vote
finish?
on the entirety
Okay.
of, yeah, thank you. Anybody, any comments or questions so far? Okay, thank you.
One commenter states that the requirement that the school notify the department that a student is eligible to take an exam is something never required before and does not serve the student. The proposed rules implement House Bill 1865, as we've seen before, and the language about a student, specifically, as I stated before, .2035 for the Texas Occupation Code, upon completion of a prescribed course of instruction, the school shall notify the department that the student has completed the required number of hours and is eligible to take the appropriate examination. So it is new, and understandably, it's never been done before, but it's because of the new law change. So no change has been proposed, no change is being made to the rules as a response to that comment. So with,
I guess I don't see the wisdom in that, but I understand that the rules require it.
the law requires that.
Law requires it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Specifically, section 455.2035.
Can I ask a question on that, Paul Stone? And I guess the section 455.2035 in the Occupations Code that's cited there, that was created by House Bill 1865? That's new?
Yes, sir.
By the House Bill, okay.
Yes, and that actually, the language in the rule is verbatim from, in statute. So we just pulled it completely over, and I can read it to you. So,
I guess I have a kind of a question about the administrative process for that. So that means when a student completes, the schools will notify the department they are complete. Do they then need to wait from TDLR to say, okay, we've received that notice, now you can test? Or as long as we've notified TDLR, they can go ahead and test there afterwards as soon as possible?
Ray Pizarro, Director for the Education Examination Division. So this process, as you mentioned, is new. And so what the law and now the rules is attempting to do is to align the department and the relationship with the schools, as well as with the students that are attending the schools. Right now, we don't know who are attending at what school. So by schools reporting to us, and we will get the logistics, of course, later during the process, but just to say you're reporting to us monthly on all of your students' activities, on how many hours they're clocking each month, that relationship will be happening to the department, and we will receive notice electronically from all students at all schools from how many hours they've completed. Of course, once they've hit the mark, as Colleen was saying, the minimum requirement of the 500 hours, we will know that those students have completed the required course by law, and those folks are eligible to test.
Right. And they won't necessarily need you to send approval to them.
Right,
Got
right.
it.
So what would happen is we would have a relationship with the exam vendor to say, hey, these are the folks we know that are eligible to test. So it will really create a one-way avenue instead of having how many schools we have? 52? Having 52 or 60 schools contacting independently a third party who is administering an exam, and the department does not know who has completed or who has done hours in a school, whether they're licensed or not. So this kind of aligns that relationship again with the department and the school. And we can get into a lot of the details. We've talked about some of this in the work group, and we can actually do a little show and tell in the work group, showing you how it currently works for the barber and cosmetology world, because they have a similar provision, and we can show you that relationship, and we can also have that discussion on how we would administratively put that process together. And for those who are listening, of course, we were going to have a teaching moment and education moment on how to utilize all of that information, especially the new database on how schools will be entering those. But again, as Colleen said, we have plenty of time to do that, and it's not I know new things are scary. It's not scary at all. It's very easy, and it's not really requiring any additional work other than you entering the numbers into a system instead of writing it down somewhere. This would just have it a lot easier. You'd log in, enter it, and you're done, that kind of thing.
Great. Thanks for that answer.
I have a question. So that would eliminate us contacting anyone and saying they're eligible for the test?
That's,
Okay.
that's the hope.
Yeah.
No hope. That's exactly how it's going to work. No hedge words. It's going to work exactly like
When are
that.
we going to start that fingerprint with the students?
I missed the question.
When are we going to start the fingerprinting with the students coming in and out
The
of
permitting.
school, the permit?
So there's two different things. So permitting and fingerprinting are
Two different things.
Yes, two different things.
Right.
So students won't be won't be fingerprinted because you do it upon your application.
Okay.
But the permitting process will.
Right. So I just want us to all be clear. The student permit is just is a simple permit, I guess it's a better word, that they can utilize only at the school. It's not a license. It's not something they could use to work in the workforce outside of the school. This is just to identify those students that are enrolled in a school, and yes, they are enrolled in Paul Stone School, and yes, they are clocking hours in Paul Stone School. So an inspector comes over and he says, whoa, you have, according to our database, you have 10 students enrolled in your school, and he could see, he or she will be able to see how many hours have each of those students have been clocking before he even steps into the school to do the inspection. So they'll know up front because of that database, oh, here are all the licensed permitted students at that school. So there are students other than a non-student permit in there, we would know that as well. If we know there's only supposed to be 10 students and we see Paul with 100 students, well, we have a problem, right? That's kind of where we're getting.
I had a question. Do you need to?
I was going to say, I'm sorry, I don't know why I thought I didn't know the answer, but the student permit process is going to be required by June 1, 2020.
I had a question. I want to clarify, first of all, too, where I won't get in trouble. It's not Paul Stone School, it's Abby Stone School. I'm scared my wife raises her hand, and I kind of, she's probably watching. You know, my wife is tremendous. A question I think that's timely, not only for school owners who are watching this or who will watch it, I think for people at this table. We're enrolling for a class right now that starts Monday, January 13th. Sure. It's not going to be over until, I think, the last day of classroom attendance is like June 10th. Sure. That $25 student permit fee, we're either going to absorb it or we're going to pass it on to students. If we're enrolling for that class right now that's not going to be over until past June 1st, we should be making arrangements on how we're planning to handle that $25 fee.
That's a good commercial break for everybody. That's a good. I mean, you're making a valid point. That's why the language in 1865 says students enrolled on or after. So if they are a student on that day, we're going to put them in the database, and Ray's going to have, you know, an expedited process because he's smart and he thinks through these things. He's going to have an expedited process for taking care of the students that are currently enrolled and then those that are coming on new.
And we'll have the town hall meetings where you go to different parts of the state to educate people. Do we know, I guess those will be in the spring. Do you know when those are going to be and when you'll be announcing the dates or anything?
No.
That's a good
Thank you for that clarity.
Coming to you.
Brevity is great.
Yeah, coming soon.
We'll make
Some
sure
of
that
us have
But
difficulty
those are
scheduling.
But those are good points, and we've thought of that because we do want to go out regionally instead of trying to bring folks in here. We want to hit the schools and go to a location where we know there's going to be a group of schools. Let's say there's 5 or 10 in this area. We want to hit those 10 schools and have that face-to-face with them and try to answer all their questions and show them how it's utilized. But of course, we're going to get with the work group and show you guys as well and see what things you see. And Paul, you make a good point about the in-between. So we'll work through those.
Russ, point of clarification. A student enrolled after June 2020. So if I enroll a student in April, they're not going to be a student permit even though they're going to graduate after June. That class is enrolled prior to that June implement.
No. The language in the statute says student enrolled on or after.
It says on or after.
On or after
But
June.
they're already enrolled and under contract.
But they're enrolled. That's where the period starts. It's not, don't read the language to say a student with a student permit before or after. It's if you are in a school you're enrolled, whether you've been in there for 499 hours.
Okay.
Or for 1 hour, you're going to get the permit.
Okay.
You're going to have the permit.
Hmm.
And there's always a
Just
line in the
if we-
sand.
If we want to look at it in 1865, it's section 10 of the bill, so.
Mm.
But I can provide that.
Okay. All right, is there any more discussion with regard to the rules and the report here? Let's see.
Russell Rust, I'd like to make a motion to accept the rules.
Okay.
Second, Paul Stone.
With-
Oh, I'm sorry.
With the
Change.
removal, with the
With the
change
removal.
per the comment
Mhm.
to
1767.
11764F.
F, 11764F.
Okay,
We'll remove that out as well.
thank you.
I second
Now,
that motion.
I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Colleen, you and your team, you all did a great job on these rules. And
Thank you. I know it's a lot of work. Just reading through them was a Herculean task.
Mr. Chairman, Brian Francis.
Yes.
You know, some of the comments that were earlier in the public comment section, the rules that you have just approved to move the adoption to the commission streamlines a lot of that just becoming a school, and it streamlines the data entry side of it. More importantly, on the back end, instead of having the different versions of transcripts that'll come from the 62 different schools, the data is already going to be in the system. You won't have to provide us that transcript. We will already know. And so some of those elements of shrinking the time and allowing for it to be more expeditious and getting folks licensed, you just added to that efficiency. And you've also, going with Mr. Gracia, you've also helped us get a tighter handle on when those elements of human trafficking are trying to sneak through and come into the process. We now have a closer handle and idea of who's in there, and that information only helps us become smarter in that fight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So are there recommendations for items for the agenda for the next board meeting?
Mr. Chairman, we'll give you an update on the rules. I've got a feeling that we'll have a dog and pony show from Ray and his folks, because it's not just the work group being privy to how the thing's going to work underneath the hood, but
Yeah.
allowing everyone to be able to listen to that will be something that will be important as we go through the process. We'll also have information regarding the implementation and basically the creation of our anti-trafficking unit, which will have a nexus. It's not just dealing with massage, and we want to emphasize that. It hits our electrician program, our air conditioning contracting program, barber, cosmetology, our transportation network company program, which is Uber and Lyft. It's reached into our licensed breeder program. There was a trafficking moment that occurred with a foster family trafficking their children in a unlicensed breeder facility. And so it reaches across spectrums, and I don't want this industry to think that it's being singled out, but there are people that are singling out to exploit your industry, and those are the people that we're going to be working with law enforcement to help try to eradicate that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And I just want to point out for all of us, as well as for the people who are viewing this, that there's a natural concentration on the bad actors in our field, and yet they're so outnumbered by the good actors.
Yes,
We may
absolutely.
punish the people who are doing bad. We're not particularly rewarding the people who are doing good. Your work is your reward. But I just want to publicly acknowledge those thousands of therapists who are doing great work out there, and just to say that also. Thank you.
Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel. Well, one of the other requirements which we just passed in our rules is the human trafficking prevention sign that's required in the facilities now, schools and establishments. So we'll bring those before you as well for a review.
Very good. Thank you. So, it would seem to be time to talk about the timing for the next meeting.
I'm being pinged again. We currently don't have a date set up in our programs for this one, for our build implementation team. So we can poll the board going forward to see what would be a good date. I know we're now currently, are we into February? So we've been scheduling, so don't anticipate January. Possibly February, but we will, as soon as we can, Anna will reach out to
rather
get
than
some
sign
dates
it
for
now.
you. Yeah.
Okay.
We will see.
We'll make sure Ray sees them.
Colleen says we will make sure Ray sees you before that.
Ah, it'll be a pleasure. Yeah. That's what they kind of just did.
I thought they're talking about his discussion of the location, time, the next meeting. Did they ask about it?
Paul's just asked me, just for clarity, have we gone over the recommendations for agenda items for next meeting? I believe so.
I think we have some staff
Yes.
reports, an update on the,
Good question.
on the rules.
Yes.
Presentation by Education Examination regarding some of the mechanics for working the enrollment process,
Yes.
FAQs as well. Also, an information about our anti-trafficking efforts. Come on over here, Chris, while you're talking, or you can go to the table if you want to do.
Yeah. Let me just ask, board members, do you have any agenda items that you anticipate bringing up in our next meeting? Just wanted to give you a chance to ask. Okay.
There's also going to be, Mary Winston, a penalty matrix update based on statutory changes. So we have quite a bit on our plates.
Okay, I believe it. Thank you so much. All right. We've been time efficient, I feel, and it's time to end the meeting. I'm going to, now at 2:59, I believe, declare this meeting successful and to an end. Thank you so much.